All right, so happy almost spring break. Yeah. And remember that I'm the nice professor and I didn't give you any work to do over spring break. Just remember that, okay? Anyway, so today you turned in your Charlie Harper. As is generally the case, the day you turn something in, you get your grade sheet back for the previous project. I try to do it faster, but most of the time it takes me until that. But that's kind of my own self-imposed limit that you have your grade sheets. So do make sure you look those over, see how you did on your last assignment. If you have any questions, let me know. But also, it's at the point in the semester where most of you have at least forgotten one exercise along the way. And if you've forgotten an exercise, go back and do it. Maybe you just forgot to post it. Just either post it again, do it, etc. Those are like free points. So there's no reason not to make sure that you've done those. The other thing that can start to happen at this point in the semester is if you've been gone and your absences are starting to creep up, be aware that that's going to affect your grade long term. So make sure that you're here and continuing to come, etc. We're approaching, after spring break, that time when people just vanish. And so I like to, before everybody's vanished on me, I'd like to warn you that that will affect your grade long term. So just be aware of that. We're definitely more than halfway through the semester, so we're moving right along. I like the spring semester because spring break occurs in the middle, as opposed to the fall semester where you have Thanksgiving break and then all of a sudden it's like super panic mode, there's only 2 weeks left. So we get it kind of in the middle, which is good. I hope that you all have a nice relaxing spring break because you'll need nice, good, fresh energy coming back. So you've turned in your assignment 104, and today you've gotten your assignment 105. We're going to go through the site and kind of what you're going to be designing as part of the next phase of your project. Today, you'll be working on your assignment 105. So the two kind of go hand in hand. That's why you needed to have it today. Your assignment 105 is going to be an AutoCAD drawing, floor plan, and elevation views of a cabin that you're going to design in Yosemite Valley. Anybody been to Yosemite before? Good. If you haven't gone, go. It's worth it. If you've been there, you kind of have an understanding of what it's like. It is a national park, so you would never get the opportunity to build your own cabin in Yosemite Valley, but at the same time, it's kind of breathtaking, and there's a lot of good photography out there that we can use as backdrops for our image. As is the case with any project, we've talked about this in lecture form before, you're given a prompt. And in this, we have a program of who this is going to be for. So you have two clients. It's a husband and wife. They have no children currently. They've requested the following for their cabin: 2 bedrooms and 1 bathroom so that they can have some guests stay, a living space that includes a fireplace, and windows that, quote, capture the site. So think about views a little bit there. A kitchen that is open to the living space, a dining space, and you can have no more than 1,000 square feet in this. So you're definitely limited. It is on the small side. It is supposed to be on the small side. You're going to go ahead, and today we're going to talk through the first section in part 2, which is the evaluation of the site. And then you're going to continue working on part 3, which is the AutoCAD floor plans, and ultimately we're going to be doing elevations. I give you this project so that we're no longer just working on an arbitrary floor plan that I gave you. I want you to have some design freedom here. I want you to think about doing what you think is necessary, drawing up something that you feel is appropriate for the site and or for your clients. And in doing that, you'll learn a lot more. If I give you a very scripted, this is the floor plan we're all going to draw, you don't learn as much. And when you have to come up with your own scheme, you have to figure out how to draw it. And that helps a lot in the process of learning. So today, we're going to evaluate the site. You're going to start drawing your floor plan. As we go forward, we'll have days where you draw the elevations, and then we'll ultimately take those elevations and put them into paper space, do a layout, etc. As part of this assignment, you will actually use the plotter, the big wide format printer, and you will do a plot, and you will hand me a 24 by 36. You know how you usually hand me an 11 by 17 or an 8.5 by 11 for these records? You will actually hand me a 24 by 36. It is a bit of a waste of paper, I know, but going forward, I've talked about the powers that be. They feel it's necessary for you to have plotted something. And so we make sure in this class, because it's on the introductory side, that you actually have to plot something, and you get that experience. When you plot stuff, stuff goes wrong. plotters run out of ink, stuff happens. So if you wait until the day it is due and come in at 7 in the morning, yes, I will be here, and you can start doing that on 7 in the morning on the day it's due, chances are there'll be a bunch of other people trying to plot and it won't work. Or something will go wrong, etc. So you want to plan ahead and make sure that you have time to do your plot. Okay, so just be aware of that. There are 2 plotters that you'll have access to. One is in the back of this room, right there. The other is across the way. It's in the main drafting lab, but it's adjacent to the computer lab over there in 116. You can plot to either one. I believe this one, if you use one of the back 6 computers, I forget what numbers those are, and I'll walk through this when we get a little bit closer. Yeah, if you use 23, 24, 25, or those 3 on that side, there is a cable that's attached to this that's long enough to reach all of those. You could plug it in directly and print without having to pay for it, which is kind of nice. Okay, so it's there and you could use it. There is a roll of paper inside of this so that you should be able to just print with it. Across the way, I'm not sure whether it's directly connected to the computers or whether you can print via the network and pay 25 cents. It's up to you. But you will have to do that as part of this. You will, of course, also post to the course website the layout and your work. I'll grade that, not the printed version, as I typically do, but you need the experience of having to print it out. So that is definitely a requirement as part of this. Okay, let's see what else. That about covers assignment 105. I should also point out, though, that this program and or this cabin is something that we will use for both assignment 105 and assignment 106. When we get to assignment 106, you're going to build a SketchUp model of this cabin, taking the AutoCAD, bringing it in, and then drawing on top of the AutoCAD file. I think that's an important skill to have as well. I am not under the assumption that your cabin won't evolve when you bring it into SketchUp. Suddenly you'll realize the things that don't work, like the roof lines and whatever that you thought you had figured out but really didn't work. So things evolve. That's to be expected. They are definitely separate assignments, so you don't have to conduct them as a continuous chain. But I like to at least tell you that that's the direction we're going as part of this. So as we move in today to your exercise 119, we're going to continue with basic AutoCAD. I want to show you some basic skills that I didn't talk to you about last class that I think may be relevant for what you're doing today. But I also want to introduce the site as a whole. So you can either go to, under assignments, you can go to our assignment 105 here, or you can go to today's exercise 119. The link is in both places. At the bottom is a zip file of site information under the download section. If you click on that, it will download the zip file. And once it's done that, we can show it in its folder, and we can extract it. Let me extract all here. There it is. And once it's extracted, you'll see 2 things. The first thing is the building site as a KML file, which is a Google Earth file, which is what we're going to open in a second. And the second is some topography in an AutoCAD format that you can download and we're going to draw on top of today. So what I want you to do is I want you to open up the Kmz file first, which opens up Google Earth. And we're going to swing down right there into the building site. And it's quite amazing how much content is available online. We don't actually have to go to the site. We can see a lot about it. Your building site is in a location called Happy Isles of Yosemite Valley. If you're familiar with Yosemite Valley, Curry Village is right down in here, which is where most people go to visit at some point. There's a restaurant and that sort of thing. If you are going to hike Half Dome, this is on the way up to Half Dome. Anybody hiked Half Dome before? It's awesome. It's totally awesome, well worth it. You won't be able to walk for like 3 days afterward, in all likelihood. But it's worth it. So anyway, well, I'll show you a few pictures of Half Dome in just a second because I can't resist. So our building site is right down here in the valley. There is a river that goes through, and we're nestled in between 2 rather large mountains on both sides. If we were to swing our view around a little bit, hold on a second. there we are, looking across the valley. Let's see if we can get down in here a little bit more. There we are. And there we are looking across the valley. So we're definitely down in a canyon. Lighting conditions are such that we're down in a canyon. We're going to have light in the middle of the day, but not so much in the extremes because we're down in this. But at the same time, we have a beautiful view across the valley toward the mountains beyond, etc. So just because we can, okay, maybe not. Maybe we can't. There we go. So if you were hiking Half Dome, you'd come up past our building site, you'd work your way up here, you'd work your way up here, and you'd work your way around here. There we go. And then you'd go up the first half here, and then right across here is where it gets fun. And just for reference purposes, there's the cables that you hike up. Let's see if we can find another view. There we go. To get up the side of this mountain. And obviously this side right there is the big cliff. That's obviously heavy traffic in the middle of summer. When I was there, it was not that crowded. But there's the view from the top. It's pretty spectacular. So anyway, I at least wanted to point that out to you. Sorry. I have something that's causing me to sneeze. Anyway, so all of that was not necessarily relevant. That's our building site. But it's nice to at least see the context a little bit. So feel free to look around, do some Google searching for pictures. It'll help you kind of have an understanding of the site. Once you're done, we're going to open up the other part that came with our zip package, which is the topography for assignment 105. If I double click this, it should open in AutoCAD. Unfortunately, it's opening in AutoCAD 2016, not 2017. We were working in 2017. So it looks like I'm going to have to open 2017 first. And then I'll open it from within 2017. Maybe on your computers it'll open in 2017 if you double click. I don't know. All right, 2017 is open. I'm going to go to the open icon up here at the top. And I'm going to go find in my downloads folder if I can. The topography file. Now, when I created this topography file, I did it in Rhino and I exported. And one of the things that AutoCAD does when you do this is it asks you, are you sure you want to open the DWG file because it wasn't created by AutoCAD? Yes, you do. Go ahead and open it. All right. So this file contains a bunch of topo lines. They're at 1 foot increments. So every one you go up 1 foot. And this right here would be the river that flows. Looking straight up is north. So it gives you some site context in terms of how we're drawing. This is very, very large. So if we're looking at 1,000 square feet, you know, let's see. Let me draw a rectangle here. You know, we're talking, what's 1,000 square feet? 20 by 50. We're looking at something like that. So it's pretty small in comparison to the site. So I want you to recognize that it's relatively small when you start to draw. So as we start to set up this file, we're going to spend a little bit more time next class talking about layers and how to work with layers. But I want to introduce the concept of layers to you today. In the center of the home ribbon, we have something that is laid out for layers. I want you to click on this big button called Layer Properties. It has 3 little pieces of paper with another piece of paper next to it. And if I were to open that up, it brings up the Layer Properties Manager window. And in the Layer Properties Manager window, we can see that I have a layer called Topography, and I have a layer called 0. The layer 0 is default in AutoCAD. You can't delete it. It just exists. It always exists. And the Topography layer contains all of the topo lines that are on it. The Topography layer also contains a green check mark next to it, which means it is the current layer. So if I were to draw anything, the things that I were to draw would show up on that Topography layer. So I'm going to go ahead and create one new layer. And I'm going to do that using the 3 paper with a little yellow star next to it. It creates a new layer for me. I'll call this Floor Plan, for lack of a better term. We'll talk about layer naming schemes, etc. a little bit later on. But for right now, we're keeping it simple. I'll call it Floor Plan. And I want the Floor Plan layer to be the active layer. So I will double-click on that little parallelogram. And when I do that, it will turn to have the green check next to it. That means that's the layer that I will then be drawing on, which is good. The other thing is, right now, the Topography layer is editable. So if, for example, I were to select something and press delete, those pieces would go away. On the other hand, if I come over to the Topography layer and I click the little padlock and it locks, I can still select the curves, but if I press delete, nothing will happen. I won't be able to delete the layers. So when I start to draw, it's very, very useful to lock the topo layer. So I have that locked. I can then close my Layer Properties Manager, and I can go ahead and start to draw my building. So we'll do this very similar to what we did last time. I can start with a polyline, and I can go ahead and start drawing. Let me turn on ortho for a second. And we could say, I don't know, 20 feet, and we'll go up. Draw feet. And I'm not telling you what dimensions I'm putting in because I want you to come up with whatever you think is appropriate for you. All right, so say it's something like that. I have no idea. Just as we did before, I'm going to use offset. And remember, I can type in offset, or I can pick the offset tool, which is available here. When I pick that offset tool, it's going to ask me to specify a distance. I'll say 6 inches. And I could offset that particular piece of the building. Now, one of the most common things that people ask at this stage of the game when they're doing these basic layouts is, well, how many square feet is this particular shape? Especially if we have something that's not an easy shape to estimate. You can get that up here using the utilities. It's set by default to measure for distance, but we can also come down here and measure for area. So if I click on area, I can then draw lines around the perimeter of this area. And once I have it all highlighted in green like that, if I press enter, I can then look at the command line, and it's going to tell me that this particular one is 693 square feet. So I know that I can add more square footage to it. So it's a useful tool just to have an idea. I'll hit escape to finish, of how big something is. And in this particular case, I need to make this a little bit larger as part of my drawing. The other thing that happens that people sometimes need to do is, as they're drawing, they end up with 2 lines that don't quite intersect. Oops. So I have that line, and I have this line here, and they didn't quite intersect. I can use something called a fillet to intersect those 2 lines. And by default, fillet is actually designed to round corners. So if I were to pick the fillet command right here, and I were to specify a radius, I could say my radius is 2 feet, for example, and these 2 lines would come together with a little curve like that. I could use that for my building here. I could do the same thing, repeat. Like that. But sometimes you want them to come together where they're at a sharp angle. Well, if I set the fillet radius to be 0 instead of 2 feet, they'll come together as a sharp corner, like that, which is a very useful, instead of extending and trimming, it's a very useful way of connecting two lines. It works even if your lines aren't at 90 degrees. So if I were to turn off ortho and I had a line here, and I had another line there, and I wanted those two to come together as a point, I could once again do a fillet with a radius of 0, and they come together at a sharp point. So I'm showing you that because it's a trick. It's just another way of working through it. Another option might be something called a chamfer, which I don't think is even listed under the most common tools here. I'm not even sure if it's listed there. You can get to it by typing chamfer. And what chamfer does is very much like the fillet term. In this case, it's going to allow us to basically angle a particular corner. So let me click on distance here to specify the distance. Once again, I'll say 2 feet and then 2 feet again. And what chamfer does is it angles the corner over at an angle. So you might want to do that to your building. So I could repeat the chamfer, and we could say from there to there, and from there to there. Now, if I were to repeat the chamfer on the inside of this room, for example, notice that in this context, the distance here is greater than the distance here, because it has the same chamfer, right? It's still 2 feet by 2 feet. So in this context, if you wanted the walls to be even, instead of doing the chamfer after you created the outer walls, do it before you create the inner lines, and then when you do the offset at 6 inches, it will keep the distance, the 6 inches there and there. So do the chamfer or the fillet before you do the offset. Let's see, what else? I told you area, I told you chamfer, I told you fillet. We're going to cover hatch a little bit later on. There's a few other things like move and rotate. If you wanted to rotate a particular building, you could select your building, click on the rotate tool here. It's going to ask you to specify a base point. Okay, I want to rotate from here. And then you could do it an arbitrary amount. Oh, I want it to be rotated like that. Or you could actually type in an angle. You see down in my little heads-up display there, it says specify an angle. I could say, oh, I want it to be negative 15 degrees, for example. Negative 15 would be going the direction that I was going. If I wanted to go positive, it would be going counterclockwise. And so it's kind of up to you as to how you figure it out. So that's rotate. Move is essentially what you think it is. You click move. It says specify base point to move from. I want to move from here to there. Rotate, we've done trim. You guys did mirror last class. That should probably cover the bulk of what you need. So once again, just make sure that you're on a new layer called floor plan. The other thing that's useful at this stage of the game is I'm going to use save as instead of save to change the location of where this file is going to go. So I'm going to click on the little disk icon with the pencil next to it. And when I click that, I'm going to specify that this needs to go not into my downloads folder, but instead into my, in my case, my OneDrive folder. In your case, it may be OneDrive or it may be your flash drive. And I will put it into exercise 119. There it is. And we will call this spring of 2017. And I'll go ahead and save. So from here on out, I wanted to get you a few other practice skills that might be useful. But you have the rest of the day to work on this floor plan. The further along you get, the easier it'll be next time. Right? We're going to start drawing elevations next time. So if you have a well-developed floor plan, drawing the elevations will be easy. If you don't, then you'll have to spend more time on the floor plan and you'll get behind. Are there any questions about where we're going? No? Good. All right.